quick addition. When I first took this job, I used to talk about our prospects a lot, and he used to roll his eyes like crazy. And now he's already talking about big league camp and which ones are going to be there and how excited he is.
That's just a subtle reference to some young players that have earned the right to come to big league camp. You guys can guess who those guys are. See you soon, Max, Kevin.
Oh, now you're making the decision.
Lorenzo. I got a lot of wish lists for big league camp.
All right.
AJ does not mention how you Lee.
How dare you? How dare you? Scott Harris is a big fan of How You Lee. Welcome to another episode of the Motor City Metrics Tiger Minor League podcast here at TigersMLReport.com. I'm Rogelio. You can see alongside me is Brandon Day, Uper, and Mike. I'm sure Chris will be along shortly, or he fell asleep. This is the time of year where Chris is always doing stuff, and so there's a good chance because, like Monday, for example, I was going to do the show Monday, but we had stuff that we did over the weekend. It was a Castillo brother / get together with my son, and we got together on Buffalo Wild Wings. And before I knew it was 11 o'clock, and so so I thought I'd do a proper end of the season show after the presser on Monday too with Scott Harris. We'll play some more clips for that later. And the Arizona Fall League is underway. Of course, there's postseason baseball. The Cleveland Guardians down 5-3 in the ninth come back, win 7-5, and now make it a 2-1 series lead. The Dodgers right now up 3-1 in the bottom of the third in Flushing. They lead that series 2-1. And so for people out there who may have taken a break from baseball, I personally did. I didn't watch baseball for a couple days because I was just burned out. I know Brandon and I have talked about this.
Yeah,
I just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. I needed a break. And so, and meanwhile, for my birthday, I got this nice little shirt. Thanks to my wife. She got me this nice tiger shirt. So that was pretty well, the pitching ninja tiger thing. So that was pretty cool. So yeah. But yeah, it's just the press conference. There's a lot of little nuggets from that. We can talk about the free agency, the thought that people thought, the Tigers are going to spend, but is it going to be the spending they want to spend? A lot of Willie. You guys were talking about Willie Adames beforehand. I thought that was funny because I don't know.
No chance in hell.
Well, I mean, not necessarily chance in hell, but I like the way he answered this question. This is Scott Harris from when he was taking a question from Stoney.
Juan Soto, there's going to be a lot of free agents out there. Are you going to have the funds to get whoever you want?
Yes, and listen, I totally understand the question. It's totally fair, and I understand that dollars spent is the most convenient measure of activity in a given offseason. It's not really how we think about it. Like, we don't chase payroll thresholds; we chase talent. If there's a talented player we have conviction on that fits how we play and fits our clubhouse, and he costs money, we're going to pursue him aggressively. If we find a talent we have conviction on that fits how we play and fits our clubhouse that costs prospects, we've done a lot of work to restock our farm system and should have the prospects to be able to make a trade like that. And if we find a situation where a player, who we have conviction on, who fits how we play, costs both money and prospects, well, we're prepared to do that too. We just have to anchor all our decisions by the talent and how much that player can help us first and foremost. It's what has guided us to this position that we are, and we're not going to lose sight of that.
So there we go. They're going to spend.
Somewhere Chris Illich takes a puff off a cigar and says, yes, good job, kid. Thank you. Yeah. Well said.
Sounded great.
Yeah. I can't believe they let him off the hook for Juan Soto right away, though. Like, can we at least talk about it? God. Yeah. Seems unlikely, doesn't it?
It does seem unlikely. Well, I'll start with, I'll go around the room here. There's Tyler mentioned this, and I was going to bring this up. The fact that this is the first time he did mention trading prospects. And this is a system that we've talked about numerous times by the way, Chris is taking the night off. So he went Monday. He's going to take the night off. I just texted him here now. But it was the Tigers have trading capital. I mean, they have a glutton of second basemen. You have Peyton Graham, who's in the Arizona Fall League. I think there's reasons why there's certain players being profiled. I know, pain, sadness. I get it, Brandon. Yeah. But he's also been plagued by injury and just hasn't been good. I mean, it's unfortunate, but as far as Gio Urshela 2.0, I think the Tigers do. I do think the Tigers have something. They have a player or two that they are looking at right now that they probably have a potential offer for. That's what I think. But I just think that they have these guys that they are eyeing from different systems. They did the same thing. They loved Lee for a while, and they had an eye on him. So, but I'll start with you guys. Do you guys think it's going to be big trade first, or they sign somebody first?
I don't know about first, but I do think a trade is it's hard to know like what's going to come in what order, but they're going to sign pitching. I feel like there's going to be, some pitching signed, but it wouldn't surprise me a bit. No, if they went and traded, for a position player. The thing is they like youth though. And it's like, it doesn't really fit kind of where they're at to think about trying to get a guy who's like 2 years into the league or 1 year into the league or trading prospects for another, upper level prospect, unless you're talking about like, oh, we're trading Bryce Rainier for a, Leodis DeVries or somebody, I don't really see that kind of thing happening. I continue to like the idea of Bichette if he was actually not that expensive, but I don't really see Toronto bothering to trade him for not much. They'll probably just take a swing for 1 more year. But it was interesting, at least that he did emphasize the fact that, yeah, we have the farm system now to be able to go get who we want. We know there's some redundancy down there. Is Howie really a third baseman? I don't know. Doesn't really seem that way so far, but it is still pretty early and he didn't get a lot of chance to work at it. He's also only 21 years old. So, I mean, I could see such a possibility. Obviously, Chris and I have mentioned trading Jace Young, I think, on every single podcast this entire season.
Yes.
But again, it's like, what can you get for the guys that you don't want? That's the problem. When you don't want them, other people don't want them. And I have to imagine that by now, other GMs who are not that bright are at least aware of the fact that the Tigers are pretty bright now and are not going to be an easy mark, and that you're much more likely to lose a trade with us than maybe you used to be. I don't think the Dodgers are having regrets over trading Tyrone Lorenzo and Trey Sweeney for Jack Flaherty because that's just who they are. But that's not the kind of deal that most franchises would be very comfortable with. And if they did make it, they'd be feeling pretty grim about it right now. So, he may well have somebody in mind, and that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, I still, somebody just mentioned Luis Rengifo in the comments. I mean, someone like that still kind of makes more sense to me. And just trying to find that right-handed bat that can play around the infield that has a little more punch than Andy Ibanez. Something like that is probably more likely than going and signing Willie Adames or Alex Bregman is probably just going to end up back with Houston. I don't know. The thing I always say though, when people are like, oh well, we don't want to get caught in a bad contract, is okay, and that makes sense. Like, we don't like where we are with Javi. But Javier Baez isn't hurting them right now in terms of payroll at all. Right. So, what are you saving that payroll for? What are you worried about, getting us into a bad situation for if you're never going to actually spend on anyone anyway? The whole point of signing a veteran free agent is that you get 2 or 3 good years out of them, fill a position of need, and then, you're kind of screwed. And that's just how that goes. But we have a pretty good example in the postseason right now of the Yankees, Mets, and Dodgers. There they are. It's pretty damn hard to win if you're not spending some money and taking some of those chances. So we'll see what he's got up his sleeve, and I hope he does have something. And I do like also that he mentioned that they have to fit in the clubhouse. You do have to have some care with that. I mean, this is a team that has a strong vibe going. They're young. A lot of them have played together for a long time. They like each other. You do want someone that's going to fit right in there and not just be kind of a lone wolf. So there's a lot of things to consider. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they make a trade as well. Maybe a big one.
It's interesting when you talk about putting prospects out there in trade. That seems to me like that then takes a lot of patience because I imagine you kind of want other teams to come for your guy. Because once you put your prospect out there on the market, you pretty much said, well, we're okay with moving him, Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, we have other internal ways we'd rather go. We can afford to move this guy on. So we'll see what happens there. I really believe that I take Harris for what he said the other day. I think they're going to go after pitching, and I think they might go after it pretty hard. It will be pretty interesting to see if they go after Burns, but what that does to a Skubal extension. Then when you talk about clubhouse dynamics, what are they going to do to extend him if they want to? And are they going to bring in a big time arm to go with him? That would be quite the move. They have the payroll room to do it. There's nothing precluding them to do it unless Burns doesn't want to come to Detroit. So that's going to be kind of fun to witness. But other than that, we talked about the other night, and I'll say it again. Mark Canha was their right-handed bat they brought in last year. I think Chris said it the other night, and I totally agreed 100%. I could see someone who's just one tier above him as kind of the right-handed bat that they bring in, kind of someone on that level.
Yeah, I mean, we could hope for Brett Rooker, and I wouldn't put that entirely out of the question, but until they make a big move, it's hard to believe in Scott Harris making a really big move like that. It just doesn't really feel like him yet.
Mike, what about you? I mean, where do you stand with this?
I mean, I'm just kind of look. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I haven't been on pod in a couple weeks. I've been busy, but also it's been a real emotional roller coaster, and it's been a lot for me to process. I haven't spent as much time thinking about the off season as maybe I should have. But I just think the way I'm looking at it is just looking at the crop. My biggest concern is just I want an upgrade at first base, and I just don't see one in the free agent market. I think that's something that they probably have to make a trade for. And that to me is I want to love Torque and I want to believe in him, but I also know in my heart that if he's a starting first baseman with no competition going into next year, I'm not going to feel very good about it. So honestly, that's like the number one thing. I mean, pitching, obviously, I feel like I'm kind of ignoring pitching. I feel like number one offensively, that's what I'm thinking about. So I'm seeing a trade. Christian, I see people saying Christian Walker. I just worry because he's a little older and like they were saying, a good fit culturally and with the team. He's just, I don't know if that's where the fit is my only concern with him. So I just see a trade at first base being something that could kickstart things off and would make me feel great about the offseason, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you noticed during the press conference, the biggest thing he said was that Torque needs to have a good offseason. That was a very strong, like worded, I don't say coded or not speaking for him firsthand. But that was very indicative.
That was the one thing that he really went into detail about, talking about like, okay, he's constantly caught between, trying to sit on different shapes or, cover different zones and can't do both together. He didn't go into that much detail about anyone else. So
and it was interesting.
He does have an option left. They don't have to commit to him. But again, if we're talking about trading someone, if you can package Torque with someone to a team that's interested and can give him at bats and, is willing to kind of, try things out and put up with, maybe some struggles, then maybe that's another route to go with Torkelson.
Or something like, Nick Spillane just texted me, one of our fans. He said, way off the radar, but what if the Tigers empty the clip with Sorry Gibson Long, Jaden Ham, and others for Austin Riley? Rays are thin on pitching and have a lot of money extensions locked in. Never know. That's not, Austin Riley, same state as Mississippi as Cole Keith.
Yeah.
That's a really kind of like that's not a bad idea.
The Braves are at this point where they're going to break it down. They're going to bring Acuna back next year, most likely. I don't know why they wouldn't keep loaded up for another run, but that's a great idea. Austin Riley would be wonderful. But, Raj, I just want to ask you, because Chris and I talked about the other night about Torkelson. One thing I would have loved if someone had followed up with Harris once he said he's got to have a great off season, right? I would love to know more about what that means. What does that look like? And maybe he would never tell us that, but I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are. What does a good off season look like for him? Is it just a matter of he does some work that we don't see and he shows up a better guy on March 1st or what?
I think it's exactly that, Uber. Brandon and I, Chris, broke down his swing like 1,000 times during the summer to see if there was any hitches and differences, and there was subtle, but it was really, really, you had to really kind of pay attention. I really think that he has to go and maybe start back, take the advice that they maybe gave him and use it, because maybe like I personally think that they probably gave him a set of instructions.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, and he didn't do it. I mean, if he did do it, there would have been more results of it, or maybe he's going out and redoing his swing completely because that was what they wanted him to do in Toledo, and he just didn't want to do it because he's just like, well, no, it's just a mental thing or whatever the case is. Tork thought that, I'm paraphrasing, but I know Tork was just basically like, hey, I'm fine. So maybe he just revamps his whole entire approach to the plate.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think they want him to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that he didn't try anything, physically with his swing, but it was just the kind of subtle adjustments that every player makes during the season. So maybe it's, we're going to lock you in a basement with the teacher man for 2 months and you're not allowed out until you can hit like Kerry Carpenter.
There you go.
I doubt it's that specific, but I would very much like to know what that exit interview with Spencer Torkelson sounds like between Hinch and Harris talking to him.
Absolutely.
Something big has to change. He actually did. I mean, I know his numbers were, much better when he came back, but again, it was like a month and you could still see all the same issues. He was a little bit better against fastballs, but it just looked like he guessed right on a few more occasions that ripped a double to left. I don't know. I mean, how many home runs did he hit when he got back? It still seems like it was like one.
It wasn't that many. No. By the way, Joe, thank you for the $10 there.
That ball
Thanks,
is
Joe.
gone.
Nice.
Such
Yeah, it
a
wasn't
long
much.
time.
His question is Corbin Burns just a pipe dream? Yes. I think Corbin Burns, I mean, as much as he would be a really good fit in a Tiger uniform, I think he could end up going to a place like the Dodgers or just a big market team. I mean, you can see the Mets going out of their way to outspend, or maybe even the Yankees or something to that effect. But it seems like with the way the payroll, as mentioned earlier, the top three payrolls are in this ALCS and in the playoffs. Well, I was just say the playoffs. Duh. So that being said, they're going to pony up to get some more starters. You always need starting pitching, but I just don't see the Tigers going up to pony up that much.
It just feels like the area where they're gonna trust Federer and try to find someone that they can, rebuild, because that's a little bit more of their wheelhouse, and that's the place where you can trust them to rehab an inexpensive player. Whereas, with the bat, you kind of just need a damn good bat. You just need to find someone who can hit that you don't have to sort out. Berter and Beauregard, I seem to have a fine enough season. A few guys got worked out along the way. Parker, most notably, but there's, this isn't a hitting engine the way it is a pitching development engine.
I like what Michael Mayer here said. He said the problem with Torque is he's always been horrible early in the season. So unless he's good in spring and April, how do we know he's the same old Torque? That's a great point.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I've always said this, and I've said this about pretty much all walks of life, professionally, baseball, whatever. The easiest thing in the world is to do nothing. Okay, they don't have to make a move, right? I mean, I know that would make Mike upset, and I get it, but they have him under team control. He's not arbitration eligible. He's dirt cheap. He has an option remaining, the whole deal. So if they decide to invest heavily in a third baseman, let's say they do go get Alex Bregman. Okay, does that maybe preclude them adding a ton of payroll at first base when they know they have Torkelson sitting there who they think they can possibly work with? I don't know. So I don't think it's a done deal that they upgrade with him. I think it's a very high probability that someone who doesn't own a first baseman's glove in that clubhouse might have one next year. I think that's the easiest solution because, again, that's close to doing nothing because the guy's already in the clubhouse. So we'll see. It just depends on what big ticket right-handed bat can come their way and where he plays.
Can Justin Henry Malloy play first? Because, I feel like he doesn't have a position. I feel like he can't field anywhere. Maybe that's first base because I don't know.
Well, that's definitely.
I was really surprised
when I said that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was. Yeah, I definitely was surprised that they didn't try that this year because he's not fast. He's not going to fit into this outfield. They've emphasized over and over again that they want a strong defensive outfield, and they're which kind of is an admission that we're not as worried about the infield, which makes sense. Preventing extra base hits is far more important. So I just don't really ever see him getting any reps, in an AJ Hinch team in left field. It's just not likely to happen unless Riley Green gets hurt again, which, he probably will. But, but I don't think he's going to be there. So, yeah. So, well, I mean, maybe just a little bit. But, between him and Carey, that's we've had people on the site, talking about Carey. Like, can Carey play first base? Well, I mean, I have no idea. But Justin Henry Malloy's problem at third base wasn't necessarily like his hands. It was his mobility and his, and his throwing.
Side to side. It was really side to side.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's way more likely that he could. Yeah. It's way more likely that he could move to first. And that gives you a backup plan, but it doesn't give you the kind of platoon option that they would seem to favor, Right. But like Huber says, it's all moving pieces. Like if you're going to keep Torque because you got a killer third baseman, and you teach Malloy to play first base, and and then you wait for Josue Briceño to get here in July, probably. I'm kidding. Relax, everyone. Maybe not quite that fast, but fairly soon. But yeah, they're not gonna solve shortstop, third base, and first base all, and they probably shouldn't. And we want upgrades, and we also want them to keep some flexibility to adjust as the season goes on, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to spend $60 million in the offseason, trade a couple prospects too, and we're all excited, and then someone gets hurt, in the middle of the season, and you don't have the flexibility, to replace them. So they do need to keep some options open, and I'm sure they will, because Scott Harris loves some flexibility and some options. But yeah, one of those positions has to be filled, and first base is the one where it's easiest to see them being able to convert someone. I mean, if they have an infielder and they want to move Colt Keith over there, they can do that too. Colt Keith was fine at second base, but he's not a standout in any way there. So yeah, I mean, that's the position that you can mix and match. But on the other hand, it's also the easiest one to just go get a big bat if one is available in trade, or if they like Christian Walker and can get him for 1 or 2 years rather than having to make some long-term commitment to a 34-year-old. I think he's 34.
Yeah, I mean, they started doing that already with Austin Murr down in the minors. I mean, he started playing first base because of injuries, and he didn't do too bad of a job. But if you're looking at Briceño, by the way, it was funny. Earlier, Chris posted a really good post on the Tiger Minor Report. Most home runs by a Tiger prospect in the Arizona Fall League since 2005. And he put up some names like Casper Wells, Jeff Larish, Stephen Moya, Briceño, 4 and 6 games, and Casper Wells did it twice. But people are like, oh, those names are atrocious. They're all 25, 26 years old, 24. They're all in the mid-20s.
Yep.
Briceño just turned 20 in September 23rd.
That's where Chris went wrong, though. You never associate a good player with anyone else that anyone will have bad feelings about, because people will just be like,
Yeah, they like fly.
Jeff
Larish. Yeah, Jeff Larish.
I think Jeff Larish led the AFL in RBI that year, too. He had a hell of a good league.
Yeah, Larish, Yep.
Yeah, don't worry, folks. Briceño is a freaking monster, okay? Yeah. Don't even worry about it. The kid is going to hit. I have no doubts about him. He's not going to catch.
He's not.
I was going to say, too bad he can't catch, though.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's all right. Tyron can catch.
Yeah,
he might
be.
He can.
Yeah. I got an example. You know what, Mike? I'm glad that you say that, because guess what? We happen to have an idea. Yeah, you know what? I happen to have some a really good example that yes, he can catch.
Runner takes off, pitches high, throw down in time. Tag, got him. Awkward throw from Lorenzo, kind of was falling forward, never had full ground with his base there, his feet or his knees, but throws him out at.
That wasn't exactly the prettiest throw, but that was still, I mean, one strike, pretty good there, but nevertheless.
But you guys did the work. You guys did the work, right? You talked to, people from the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers, and there was some sense that like, he's not that good. The arm strength isn't that good. The pop times aren't that good. But when you actually look at his best work, it's quite good. So he has the ability. I don't know that he'll ever be the starting catcher. He might be like, catcher DH kind of a situation, kind of a V-Mart type deal more. But the Tigers coach catching well. He's got the arm. He's got enough mobility, and he seems to be like, super work ethic guy. So, he's got to work on his framing and his blocking quite a bit. But I think there's a pretty high percentage chance that he can at least be your second catcher and, make the bat play that way.
I mean, he's working with Pena Pena talked about his ability to. The one thing he has to work on his side is in terms of like blocking and kind of side to side a little bit. That's where he struggled a lot with the Dodgers, and so I think that with working with Pena, who was really defensive first catcher when he played, and he's very. I mean, he's been worked with Alfonso in Erie, or before he got to Erie too. So there's you're right, Brandon. The coachability with that is fine. And as far as Briseño's playing first base, I think he's been playing first base the entire time, Stan. He's been down in the Arizona Fall League. So it's just a matter of he's going, if the Tigers are going to continue to do how they're doing it traditionally, he's going to start the year at West Michigan. And if he hits, look, if he's hitting for power in the Midwest League, forget about it. I mean, because the Midwest League is a league that you cannot hit for power in.
Especially in April, right?
Yeah, especially in April. And the weather, the ballparks. I mean, you look at where the Whitecaps play, it is a cavern compared to Erie. I mean, I've talked to Dan Hasty about it numerous times. He jokes about it all the time, but center field deep. It's just as deep as Comerica Park is. And they're redoing it this year. And so that's why when you see the numbers at West Michigan, power-wise, you're like, what? And then it's a completely different ball game when they get to Erie, which is why I'm interested to see what happens with Campos. But if he can hit there, if Briseño was doing the same thing he's doing now in Arizona Fall League in high A in that league, watch out. I mean, it's just gonna be a matter of him just fast tracking at that point, because I mean, when you seen guys like on Twitter going, "Oh, he looks like a man among boys," he does.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fully convinced if he was with West Michigan when they got called up, when Clark and McGonigal got called up, West Michigan was in the playoff race. They're about 2 or 3 games back, and talking to Chris about this, because this is what we do as grown men, texting each other. I think Briseño would have. I think he would have been. They could have gotten in the playoffs that way with him, and they would have dominated.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at his the bat control and the plate. I mean, he's like, it's like if Kevin McGonigal was bitten by a radioactive spider. I mean, that's what he's like. I mean, he's huge. He's got the power, but he doesn't strike out. Yeah, I mean, Jed is not wrong. He does look like he's like, fully developed already. And that's the thing. Like, it's not impossible that they are just playing him at first base because they don't want to mess with the knee still.
Yeah.
But I just think the bat needs to be fast tracked, and teaching him to catch is going to drag him way down when the bat itself is probably just about AA ready. I mean, he bombed on Andrew Painter the other day, as one of his 3 home runs in one game. And I know it's Arizona, but he hit the goddamn thing like 430 feet. So he hits the ball really hard a lot is what we saw all spring. And he still had a little bit of, he needs to catch more balls out front, needs to pull a few more balls in the air to cash in on this. But I mean, he just turned 20.
Yeah.
I'm a believer. I mean, Briseño is not far from the top 100 in my book either.
Yeah.
So it's just that, defensively, he's just going to be kind of an average first baseman probably.
So if he, obviously becoming a first baseman, and if he does go to West Michigan and hits immediately and continues to show this power, will the Tigers jump into kind of what we're seeing around Major League Baseball, where guys are coming up sooner than ever? And if he's a bat first guy and playing a defensive position that conventionally doesn't need as many reps as some positions at first base, how quick could he be up? Could he be in the majors by 21?
I don't think the Tigers are going to. I mean, I know that they talk about Toledo being the ultimate level. So if he gets to Toledo by the age of 21, then that's their belief that he's going to be on the big league roster. And so that's just all I need to see there.
Maybe they job him at the end of next year if he's just wrecking shop at at Erie or something. It's not impossible. It's probably more 2026, but yeah, I think he's going to move pretty fast next year.
It probably depends on if they sign 2-3 stopgaps like they did this offseason.
Yeah.
If they just sign Gio Urshela again, then I'm not saying him specifically, but maybe they sign a nobody just to fill a gap at first base. If that happens, then unfortunately that also affects him. So I'm not saying that's what they're going to do. Just
Yeah.
It's an interesting aside to just think of like the cast-offs, like, you know, like the guys that they just signed and ditched. Andrew Chafin, Mark Canna, you know, Carson Kelly was here only, you know, just on a 1-year deal, Jack Flaherty, and the prospects that they got back from that. Like, you know, if you just think of it in a strict equation of paying for, you know, prospects based on what a half season of those guys cost. Yeah, Scott Harris did really well, I think. So
yeah, no, I mean, if you're looking at like a guy I don't mind that Carlos Santana idea. I mean, he has hit very, very well at Comerica Park. I mean, his numbers at Comerica Park are ridiculous.
It does feel like signing like prime Nelson Cruz or something. You know, like,
yeah,
it'd feel real weird to see Carlos Santana at first base, but I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it either. The fact that he's a right-handed bat with power, and he put up a 2.5 WAR this season at the age of 38. And look, he's a guy, and I like that idea, Stan, a lot. But the chances, I want to address these two questions real quick here. The odds are Matt Manning getting traded this offseason. Look, if Matt Manning wasn't on the roster this year, down the stretch, that should tell you everything you need to know. Simple as that. Because Matt Manning could pitch, but didn't pitch. If he was down, like if I just think that maybe the Matt Manning experience, I'm not trying to speculate this, but if he could, I mean, he was healthy, and he wasn't there last month.
He was healthy, and Ty Madden made the wild card roster.
There we go.
So,
Thank you.
You go.
Yeah, Matt Manning is alive, Jed. I think he's hanging out somewhere in Toledo. I really don't know. But I know that the Tigers have just kind of gone frustrated with him a little bit with like just things about like pitching design and not listening and what have you. So there's been, you know, the rumblings have been there for a while, and the signs are there because if, you know, he felt like he wasn't listening to instruction. And so, and his chance of getting Vlad Jr., I just think he's so blue. I mean, he's so Toronto. He doesn't want, after that series against the Tigers, I think it was in July, he went off on a tear. And I think he doesn't want to leave Toronto. I think that Toronto it's not synonymous, him in Toronto. Would it be nice? Oh, if Vlad gets traded to the Tigers, I would do like whatever stunt, you know, radio producer stunt you wanted me to do, whether, you know, I've jumped, whatever. I do it just because I'd be shocked if Toronto decided to trade him.
I mean, we're all, you know, Sabre guys and stuff. We know what he's worth, you know, you know, and it hasn't necessarily been like, you know, just lights out his whole young career so far, but he's Toronto's identity. And that stuff still matters to teams.
Yeah.
And if, you know, I mean, if Toronto is willing to trade Vlad Guerrero, then they're going to trade Bo Bichette. They're going to tear it all the way down. And I mean, that, you know, you never know, but that seems like a whole lot of things would have to come to pass for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. being traded to be part of it. I know that he's only got 1 year left of free agency. I'd be much more expecting an extension for him this offseason and for them to maybe shed some pieces and try to retool around him, but they're going to keep him. And the thing, like Matt Manning, you know, I know he was hurt and it's not like he necessarily got up to snuff. It's not like, you know, they didn't just start Reese Olson right back like he was a starter after that, after coming back either. But, you know, Manning was throwing 95, 96 in that last outing. He broke off some pretty solid splitters, but more often he just looked like he always does. And they didn't just, you know, didn't choose to add him, didn't try to throw him in the bullpen and say, hey, throw 98. Yeah. They did that with Jackson Jobe, you know, who doesn't, you know, and Manning's command isn't amazing, but, you know, it's still a little bit more advanced than Jobe's kind of is. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what you're going to get for him, but you also look at the 40-man roster crunch, and I see plenty of guys that they could just flat out release from, you know, I mean, obviously there's Faedo, Valade, Madris down there. Maybe,
Blasco.
Who knows? Maybe they trade Eddie. Yeah, maybe they trade Eddie's Leonard. I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to imagine. Yeah, it's hard to imagine Manning is back. We're going to package Manning, Alex Faedo, you know, everything we don't want. And then we're going to trade for Riley.
I mean,
that's what's going to happen.
But yeah,
they're going to let Mize walk too, right?
I don't know. I think they still kind of like Mize because he's a hard worker. He throws 97, 98 with a ton of extension, which I didn't really even realize till late last year how good his extension had been. And it was even better this year. I still don't know because his breaking ball just sucks. And I've ranted about the slider a few times this year, and the splitter's still not really that much of a weapon. But I don't know. I think they might still stick with him, even though he's going to cost them a little bit more. And they haggled over nickels and dimes with him last year. But there's a chance he could get traded. He's another one that I could see getting a change of scenery trade. But I still think they kind of like him. I think they still think there's something that can be done because he's very coachable.
I just know with the whole 60-day DL situation at the end of last year, it seemed like there was the rumblings of an unhappy relationship. So I think before they made the playoffs, that was something that we brought up. And then, as they're making the playoffs, it just seems like not all that important at that time.
And he didn't get to pitch at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I was going to say. It's just like not only did that all happen, he mentioned how badly he wanted to pitch. You pitched, like 2 games down the stretch, and then he didn't get used at all. So I don't know. I guess for me, that would not be a shock at all if Mize isn't on the roster.
I just think he's going to make in arbitration was like $3 million.
You're right.
I think.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to say, but in the baseball world, that's chump change. I think if they strike, if he comes back and has a big year, there's a lot of value to be mined there.
Yeah.
For $3 million. And it's not a huge loss if he pitches like he did this year, or has the same kind of year. It's not going to sink their ship. So I think he's worth rolling another year on roll the dice one more time and see what he has. The velocity was up. There were some things I liked about what he was doing at times with his fastball. I've been complaining about his fastball usage for years and not pitching inside. He still doesn't do it enough. But if he ever gets there, I think it changes everything.
Yeah, I mean,
and it is, you can talk yourself into it because it'll be a second year back from TJ as well. That's what scares me about like Scott Harrison, his love for Matt Boyd as well. But yeah, I don't know. Mize is a really interesting question. I'll say that much. Like Manning is much more the one where it kind of feels like things have run its course there. But Mize, I could see them, thinking they could do something with even if he's a reliever, maybe for $3.5 million, that could work for him. But yeah.
Matt Manning
there's a chance he's traded too.
2015, Matt Manning, right? That's a hell of a long time.
16.
It was 16. Okay, still a hell of a long time. He's had his chances.
I think he's the longest tenured Tiger.
Yeah, he probably is. And then Faedo's like 29. Like, there's no way he's coming back. I just can't imagine. There's just not that much there. It's still just like a pretty good slider, like a above average, but not plus slider, and not much else. So, yeah, it feels like the purge is gonna come for maybe all 3 of those guys. But if I was betting, Mize would be the one that I could see them deciding, all right, we can try this again. Someone mentioned up there that is framing going to be as valuable with the challenge system? No, it's still going to be somewhat valuable because you're not going to, when they get to doing this, and I don't know for sure if it'll happen next year or the year after because they're still messing with it, but it's still going to have some value. But yeah, it will be diminished to some degree, but you're not going to be able to be Captain Hammerhands back there either. It's not going to go that far. It's still just going to be a challenge system. And I don't know if they'll ever go beyond that. And I don't know if I want them to. The more we watch just like the pure ABS, the more I disliked it. So, I like a little bit of edge. I don't know. It's just awkward because if you're new to the game and you're young and you're just looking at it, it's like, well, why the hell wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you just have a perfect system? But on the other hand, then there's like 100 years of history that then gets erased, so because it's never been that way. I mean, you go watch any game from the 70s and the strike zone's like this wide, but it also shifts this way depending on, who it is.
It was
umpires now are way better than they used to be.
That's something that's never brought up. The umpiring today is better than it's ever been.
Better.
Way better.
I have to agree.
And and they get ripped on, and that's part of the job. I defend umpires a lot, but I know. I mean, obviously, your team's losing, and they get a bad call, they're going to yell at the umpire. Fine, but yeah, that's the best part is they've never been more consistent with their strike zone than they are now. Because it's a hard job.
Yeah, but they didn't have scorecards coming out after every game, 40 years ago, where people are dissecting literally every pitch that they call.
And there was no
So-
box where you could just yell at your TV from home about
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or for that matter, or they didn't have those cool strike zone graphics on TV
Right.
back in the 70s and 80s. Instead, it was just a bunch of beer commercials or what have you. So that's what they,
I almost
Here's another
feel like
thing. If they stop throwing out the ball, sorry, I got one more.
Yeah.
Like this is how the game has changed. But if they stop throwing out the ball the way they didn't used to, like in the 60s, a ball might get fouled off. Like you'd see some crazy pitches, and you wouldn't need spider tack to throw them. So it would be erratic. But the game has just changed so much in those ways. It is more about speed and precision now. But Greg Maddux will tell you, if you get a ball with a scuff on the side of it, you can make it do some crazy things.
I don't know. I feel like the umpire thing is like, yeah, it probably would be better logically to have everything perfect, but also it probably might make more sense for ballparks to be a little bit more uniform. But that's one of the things I love about baseball. I love going to Camden Yards and seeing a place like that. Like I love the variety. And maybe that's dumb, and maybe that's like the old man in me, but like, I don't know. Sometimes you're right. The umpire, it's like, oh, this guy's got a strike zone that's, a couple inches on the outside. And it's just, I don't know. It's just like another variance of the game that players kind of have to overcome. I think it makes it interesting.
and that's what I'm going to miss about Oakland. Oakland's going to miss those big foul territories.
Yeah, the giant foul. You're right.
Yeah, I'm going to miss that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it could just get too sterilized if we just, made everything, perfectly uniform everywhere. Baseball is supposed to be a game where weird crap happens and you have to overcome it, and that's not always fair. And, they've tried to squeeze that out of most of the other sports, but baseball still has a lot of that, and it's still played outdoors for the most part. There's still grass and dirt that isn't perfectly uniform, although I'm sure some scientist son of a bitch is out there trying to perfect the perfect grain so that they can make every grain on the infield dirt perfectly uniform. But
green too. By the way, thank you for the $5 work.
Off the Frickers building.
Yeah. Oh, you know that's happening too. Like the I mean, remember in the 70s and 80s, they used to have a lot of the carpet fields, like the was it Olympia Stadium or where the Expos played. I remember Andre Dawson talked about how that stadium took years off of his career because of with the knees, and so
brutal.
The Metrodome did.
St. Louis, San Francisco,
Three River Stadium,
Riverfront,
Cincinnati,
Philadelphia.
Yeah. Somehow the Twins managed to go from the Metrodome to grass and hurt all their players even more. What is under target field? Like, what did they build that on? On like a bed of diamond? I don't know.
Indian burial grounds. I mean, we're in Minnesota. I mean,
that's probably that too.
That part of Minnesota there, but no. I will say this. As far as like the I should mention too, for the next couple of weeks or so, the show is kind of going on a semi hiatus, I guess. We're doing some stuff for the minor leagues. We're doing like our tool series, so we'll be breaking down players. We'll be doing our awards. I've been slacking, sitting on our the Rainer Castillo award. He won Newcomer of the Year, but there's some nuances to it. And then we're going to do the reliever award. So there's going to be some things coming out on that side. But in terms of podcast wise, we're going to probably take a break till probably the beginning of November to cover, out of season break until the World Series happens. And then we'll be picking back up maybe once or twice a week, or not once or twice a week. Wow. Once or twice a month in the off season. When we go into off season mode, of course, you notice we have no segments this evening because when it comes to off season, I mean, postseason, I don't want to go into inside numbers about the Yankees. I don't give a shit. I don't, we can do like end of the year award kind of thing. I mean, I wanted, when we do like grades and stuff like that, but this year, I don't know, like it didn't seem, the Tigers did everything unexpectedly. And in terms of like, if we're grading the Tigers critically,
we also burnt ourselves out the past month because we're used to the season just ending, and then instead it was like, oh my god, okay, I need to write 2,000 words every night. So it'll just be we all start arguing in some Slack or Twitter channel or something about some move the Tigers just made, and then we're like, all right, well, let's just take it to the podcast. Thanks to Wear Cow 205, by the way, for the donation. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, really, thank you, and thank you. For
unless that's weird. unless it's Weir Cow, but I think it's Weir Cow.
Yeah, I think it's worked out too.
But a cow.
But it's like I said, it's one of those things where towards the end of the season, I admit it's Weir Cow. Okay, it's so Weir Cow. I burned out. I was getting kind of burned out because between the minor league, then Erie with the postseason, and the Tigers postseason, like it was a lot. But this year, like, so next year, what I'm gonna do is try to maybe take a mid break and make it August or something like that, or I don't know. But it was towards the end. My brain was just like trying to do game stories during the postseason. It's like cannot, and so also I was trying to pick up a couple freelance things through Fansided, and anyway, neither there. Yeah. But that's how the next couple weeks we'll look around here, Tiger Minor Report. We're going to be continuing to watch the Arizona Fall League. Emily Walden will be out there. I'm sure hopefully she'll share some clips. We'll see. But she's going to be out there a couple days or a couple weeks rather. And I know that the GM meetings are in San Antonio this year. So if you want to donate, get us down to the winter. I mean, winter means cool, but actually we'll be starting to GoFundMe for spring training, all that stuff later this year. Joe, thank you for the $5.
Off the Frickers building.
And his question is for each of you: who's your Tiger? Can be current or all time.
Wow.
You know what, Mike? I'll let you go. I'm gonna put you on the spot, Mike, first.
I mean, look, my Tigers fan was going to be a lot more recent, probably. Sorry, my Miggy's always going to be my. I'm not. I'm just simply saying you're looking at a guy who played baseball his whole life and didn't really start appreciating it until after he stopped playing. Miggy's always going to be my number one favorite Tiger, like historically. Just because I loved how much people hated him for being like that playful kid asshole on the field. Like, I just loved the energy that brought against everybody. I'll never forget him picking up Jose Altuve, and it looked like a giant picking up like a toddler. And always going to love Miggy for that. But Kerry Carpenter's my favorite current Tiger right now. I love Kerry Carpenter. I think he's only going to keep getting better, and I want to see him play a full season next year so badly.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
Brandon?
See my dude hit 40 home runs. I've always said Alan Trammell, but the thing is, the more I think about it, I watched Alan Trammell in his prime when I was like 6 to 15 years old, and I barely remember. Like I don't have like strong visual memories of Alan Trammell except for certain things. I'm going to say Justin Verlander actually, because I'm a big pitching guy. And there was nobody I liked more as just like the angry, like, super jock, like douchebag, like I'm going to just blow your doors off and then did it pitcher. And also maybe the great arm talent of all time in certain senses. And I've always loved JB, and I'm not going to advocate very hard for them to bring him back because I don't know what he's got left. But if they did it and Chris Fetter was interested in doing it, I'd be A-okay with it.
Right.
Current Tiger, I think I'm kind of coming around to Kerry as well. I'm kind of more of a Colt guy maybe, but God, Kerry Carpenter's something different, man.
Yeah.
That was some big time hits he came up with. I mean, it's hard not to just fall in love with the guy when he does that.
So about you, Yooper?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, you can go back to all these different little eras of my lifetime. I'm going to limit it to my lifetime, right? Of people I've seen. So I'm sure Mickey Lolich was fantastic, and I would have loved him, but he was gone just before I started watching the team. So let's forget about those guys. I'm going to go Sweet Lou Whitaker. I mean, I have a dog named Sweet Lou right now. That probably tells you a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
But as a child, in my teens, I remember when he, made when we saw him in Trammell for the first time on the Game of the Week, and that was a big deal. And to watch those two play their whole career together, they're 1A and 1B to me. But I always liked Lou. And I love that left-handed swing. I loved watching him knock a couple into the short porch and the overhang at Tiger Stadium. He was just so reliable, so steady. Daily presence at the top of the order. That was my guy. Second, I'd probably go Max Scherzer. I always loved watching Max, but not to the point of the love I had for Lou. Current players, Boy, it wouldn't take much to put me on the Kerry Carpenter train with you guys. I've done some correspondence with a friend of his family. I just love the story. They just seem like great people. He's so easy to root for. Love the swing. But Austin Meadows is damn close. Let me tell you, I love watching Austin Meadows play the outfield. Parker Meadows, damn it. Yeah. I'm still calling Jack Flaherty John Flaherty, so give me a break. What are you gonna do? But anyway, Parker Meadows. I love watching Parker Meadows glide out there in the outfield. But I'm gonna make it 3 for 3 on Kerry Carpenter right here.
All right.
So I could have gone Parker as well. I just have that lingering little bit of fear. Like I just want to see a little bit more. I want to see him like go through a slump at the major league level and then get out of it. But I could probably be convinced to go Parker too.
Yeah, well, I would agree. I wouldn't name him best Tiger player, but my favorite right now. He's number 2 to Kerry for me.
So for me, I break it down by 3 different eras. So growing up, watched the 90-92 Tigers quite a bit, and there was a lot of Tigers I liked on there, but nobody more than Tony Phillips. Tony Phillips and Mickey Telton were like 1-1A for me because I was a catcher and when I played baseball. And his swing, everybody tried to do his swing in Little League. No one tried to say they didn't. But Tony Phillips was just so clutch and such a great player to watch. And Sparky could literally put him anywhere. It didn't matter. And he was one of my favorite players growing up because he's just hard as nails kind of guy. And it sucks that he died young. I felt like he died young. And not to say that Lou Whitaker or Alan Trammell wasn't my favorite players, but those are the guys that I was introduced to because I started following the team around 86, 87 when I was a little younger. But then as I'm playing baseball, and then Carlos Guillen is one of my favorite Tigers of all time because the guy was a constant professional, also a badass. Just don't mess with him. He talked with his bat. He didn't have to talk with words. I mean, he did, but the fact that he went out of his way, like when he came here from the Seattle trade, I thought that him going out of his way to say, they just made me feel welcomed. And he was the first guy that started that whole domino of good players that came here. And Guillen has 7 more seasons. I mean, people forget how good Carlos Guillen was. Yeah. He really was just
it's just tragic amount of injuries with him. Yeah. I mean, he was super good.
Yeah, like professional at bats, and he was a badass. And like you, Brandon, I'm in the pitching too as well. But it was hard growing up because you had Mike Henneman, Justin Thompson. That's it, because everybody else was terrible. I mean,
that was the problem, really.
Yeah, everybody. I mean, that 96 team is one of the worst teams of all time in terms of pitching. But I mean, I grew up liking guys like Felipe Lira because as a fellow, as a Hispanic person, grew up in Detroit. There was not a lot of Hispanic pitchers at all. But I would have to say, currently, right now, it's Cole Keefe because that was the first guy I was like, that's gonna I remember. You guys know how early I was on Cole Keefe. Oh, what are you doing? And him and Montero too, because Montero's story too to me is phenomenal. The fact that he's been able to.
That's true. When you talk favorite is such a tricky thing, but I mean, I definitely have strong
rooting for
and Hader for that reason. Yeah,
Perez is up there
too. It is also part of a writer. I have to be kind of quote unquote objective, and I do, and I can't be a fan necessarily, but for guys I root for a lot, Cole Keefe, because. First of all, Mary Keith, nicest lady, she's fantastic. But also it's just because with Montero too, just hearing how basically they were like, oh, he just had to put everything in Spanish, and then he became this really good pitcher. And this the only guy who threw a complete game. And Parker Meadows too. Parker Meadows is up there too. I love Parker Meadows, but
Hey, I mean, Kader, just a little guy, 6'1", 145 pounds. It's been incredible that he's done as well as he did. We've tracked him since maybe he actually did weigh 145 pounds. It's funny, when Colt was struggling in early May, there were just all these just vicious comments, and I actually wrote Mary Keith and was like, "Don't worry, he's gonna kill it. Don't listen to any of this."
Oh, Roger.
And I've never done that with anybody's family or anything like that. But I was just like, don't even worry about Colt. He's gonna be fine. And she's like, oh, I know. And I was like, yeah, you probably do. Kid's a beast. I also have to mention Ian Kinsler because God, I loved having Ian Kinsler on this team. What a dog.
I did too.
What are you gonna say, Mike?
I was just gonna say, just the beginning of the season when I first jumped on the podcast, anytime anybody talked ill will about Colt Keith, Roger got mad, like mad.
Because all these
I don't
people,
care. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna be fine. Don't worry about it. Stop talking about it. It's just
because I was
time it came up.
like just these people that like, especially Caputo. I remember Pat Caputo like, oh, he was terrible. It's like, listen,
bro,
you out of all people covering the beat for 20 effing years, you're gonna say something like that? Get the hell out of here, man.
Okay, but yeah, in the 20 years, have the Tigers ever had a farm system like this? He doesn't know how to evaluate prospects. Come on, man.
True, that's just true.
He's never had any prospects.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the biggest thing he had is Omar. Yeah. Well, I mean, he covered the team in the ninth. Yeah, I'm not going to give him any slack. No, I'm not cutting that guy slack. No way.
Pat's the one who's supposed to know baseball,
Yeah.
And by the standards of 97.1, he's easily the expert, on baseball there. He's the one person I can actually listen to talk baseball because he does know his stuff.
Yeah,
he was way off the mark there. Yeah, he was way off the mark there for sure.
Shout out to Joe Hill here about his mention during that early 90s era. Travis Fryman was my guy.
Yeah.
I love that guy. I loved watching him. I rooted for from the time he came up as a rookie. To me, that team was him and Cecil and Mickey Tettleton. Those are the three I really rooted for. But I loved Fryman. I was sad as hell the day they let him go to Cleveland. It was really a bummer. But and it's amazing how many times, as someone who did a lot of chat room stuff in the early 2000s when the internet was getting cranked up, people would say the Tigers haven't had a third baseman since George Kell. I was like, what are you talking about? Travis Fryman was a hell of a player. So he was always a little bit overlooked, which I felt was too bad.
You know the trade that really pissed me off? The one trade that I went to Spain the summer that David Wells got traded because the Tigers were doing okay. And then I got back and I found out David Wells got traded. And I was furious because this is the day before the internet. And so you hit your local paper. And in Spain, obviously, I'm not getting the Detroit news. So I come back to find out trade for who the hell's TJ? What? TJ Nikowski? Dean Crow? What the fuck is going on? What is this? I was pissed.
Future commentator CJ Nitkowski? What?
Yeah. What? Yeah. What was that? David Wells was one of the best until JD Martinez was one of the best spring training pickups the Tigers ever had. He picked him up. Toronto somewhat. Yeah. Because Tigers were also obsessed with former Blue Jays. Remember that John Cerruti, rest in peace, John Cerruti, Lloyd Mosby. For whatever reason, Sparky loved former Jays. Now we're becoming the old man podcast. People are like, Lloyd Mosby, who the hell is Lloyd Mosby? Some people may not remember him at all, but or Junior
break
Felix.
Down Barbaro Garbay's 1984 season.
Yeah, let's talk about Junior Felix. Former Blue Jay too. Barbaro Garbay, fantastic.
Doing a great job.
He did a great job. I want to mention real quick too before we get out of here. I want to say thanks to the people, the Tigers PR department, and those people because it was actually they were able to accommodate everything pretty well this year. So shout out to them and Carlos Guillen and Barrio.
Carlos Guillen,
yeah. Carlos. We're gonna have him. We're gonna have him on the pod soon. I talked to him and
cool.
Because Chris and I had some questions about him, like especially because how to get into broadcast and all that stuff. But he's a very cool guy. And he's been able to just do a bunch of stuff. He's not only does all the translation, but he does the broadcasting. He does all the PR. Like he does a lot. I mean, he wears a lot of different hats, and he's done him and Garbay.
Yeah, it's
out there done a good job. So.
Yeah, it's really been interesting, like the role that he's carved out. I mean, it just feels like so different from anything else, that the Tigers have ever had. And we've all, you and I have complained about this forever. It's like hard to believe that a sport or an organization like MLB that has like 30% Hispanic players who speak Spanish, and it's like no one in charge anywhere speaks Spanish. So it's like, in any other industry, this would just be like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? And they're finally catching up. And ¿por qué? And Carlos Guillen has got the Tigers on the right track and doing all sorts of different things on that regard. Wow, Jim Leland catching a hot stray right there. Wow.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, Jim
Leland slander at all.
Jim Leland was not my favorite game manager, despite the fact that I love Jim Leland. But there's kind of a shot there. I don't know if you can drag Miggy out the field.
I feel like anytime someone insults Jim Leland, I feel like they're taking a personal shot at me and my family because Jim Leland is our collective grandfather. And anytime I see anybody speak ill will of him, it just I see hot red flash for a second. Get mad when Roger flashed that up earlier. I was like, no, don't talk about Grandpa like that.
Yep. I just wish we could have got through to him about various bullpen usage issues, but anyway.
That was. I mean, he was trying to use his days in the Pirates, like
Keep
the
Drew
Bob
Smiley
walk.
in the game. Damn it.
Yeah, the Bob walk by
Boston.
like what was it? Bob walk, Stan, Melinda. Those days where he had it wasn't going to work here. But thanks so much for doing. Thanks
Jake
for
Rogers,
so much for
too.
doing. Oh, Jake, yeah. Oh, yeah,
I had to mention Jake Rogers. Everybody loves Jake Rogers. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, by the way, congratulations on him on winning the Gold Glove, being nominated for a Gold Glove. But thanks so much for watching. And so, like I said, next we'll take a couple weeks off to the beginning of November, but stick around. Like I said, we're gonna be doing. Chris and I will be doing a tool series. Brandon, you're more welcome to come along. We'll be doing breaking down minor league players. There's our Tiger of the Year stuff. So head to tigersmlreport.com for all your content. Again. You want to donate to the website, our PayPal link is there. Everything goes back to the site. If you want to purchase merch, there's that on the site too as well. So everything you want to support the site is on tigersmlreport.com. Jerry's gonna have a new video on our Patreon. I'm gonna put that in there. And Brandon, was there anything you want to plug for Bless You Boys?
No, I just want to thank the commenters here because the comments are always like both hilarious and educated, and I do appreciate it. I'm doing the 40-man roster preview, so I'll have that out soon, and then we'll keep covering Arizona Fall League, and I'll probably have a big stroke piece about Brycinho here pretty shortly as well because I'm hype right now.
I'm hyped. You know what I'm hyped for? I'm hyped for Rainer Castillo's sliders. Have you guys seen his slider?
I'm hyped for Gabriel Reyes' slider. Okay, yeah. Between the two of them, I'm really excited to see those two.
Oh no! Don't get me started on I'm excited for some Gabriel Reyes. If I wish he was, maybe he might pitch the Winter League, Dominican Winter League. I hope he does.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be badass. I would watch that. But Rainer Castillo, who has a really good slider a sinker and a fastball, developed one of these already.
Yeah.
Swords through that pitch, a breaking ball. Mesa in front. And he soared again. Could not hold back. Back to back. Back foot sliders loaded. 2 out. 0-2 pitch. Swing and miss. Strike 3. Did it.
Disturbing.
Look how smooth that big man is on the mound.
Yeah.
I know he got shelled the other day, but he's young. He'll be fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's going to be good.
Yeah, he just turned 20. Same thing like Brycinho. He just turned 20. So we'll talk to you guys in a few weeks. Have a good there will be 2 shows posted on the podcast side of things. The show from Monday with Uper and Chris, and then this episode. So plenty of content to hold you over. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a good night, everybody.